Hi everyone, it's Steratore, CBS Officials Analyst. Really excited to invite all of you to the Crown Ref Podcast 300th episode. It's my hope that this podcast will pull the curtain back a little bit and walk into some of the intimate detail of being an official in any sport, on and off the court or the field. I know this discussion will lead us to a place where the human element of officiating comes to the fore and why officials navigate their personal and professional lives to do what's right for the game. I would also like to take this time to give a shout out to Jerry and Adam with Protector Whistle. They have designed a unique whistle with a quality sound and most importantly, designed to keep the game safer for the players and people on the court and on the field. This unique design has changed the way that the air particles travel through the air, and I am really excited to partner with them in the development and actual distribution of the new Protector Whistle. So please, all of you, take time to join in to Crown Ref Podcast 300th episode, and let's thank the people of Protector Whistle for doing what's right for the game and making it as safe as possible for all of us. Take care and look forward to seeing and hearing from all of you after the podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Crown Refs Podcast, the audio experience for basketball officials. Serve the game.
Thank you, because what you're doing right involved is special, beyond special. And all of you that are involved are equally as special, but that's an extra star in my book, Paul, because I know why you're doing it. It's like it's not a self-serving thing here. It's deeper than that, and it shows it's real and authentic. God bless all of you.
How's everything going with you?
Things are going well. Getting ready to go tomorrow. I'm actually going to my first game on location for college football since I started with CBS. So I'm going to Kentucky tomorrow for Georgia, Kentucky Saturday, and then I'll be on the road a good bit over the next 3 weeks. I'm going to go to the Thanksgiving game naturally with the NFL, and then back to the SEC championship, and then wrap up college with the Army-Navy game. So it's going to be a good 3 weeks for on location, you know.
Is this your first time doing the college with CBS?
You know what? When I started, I didn't do it my first year. I was just NFL and hoops. And then after the first year, they asked if I'd add the SEC game on Saturday. So this is my third year now with them, but I haven't been with Brad and Gary on location before, which is much better, you know, more intimate. You're in the stadium. You can feel the game a lot better than, you know, in the studio kind of feeling.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, man. We had a good talk last week on the phone. I feel like I really connected with you. You seem like a really genuine, down-to-earth, just good dude. So really looking forward to asking you some questions tonight, and then we'll let the rest of the group also chime in and make it interactive. How's that sound?
That's fantastic. That sounds great.
First place I want to start, I always like to set a framework and hear a little bit about your bio. You have a very interesting bio, seeing that you have officiating deeply embedded in your family. So I want to just start with, coming up with that pedigree, having siblings, having a dad who was a ref. Why don't you just talk about the impact that they had on you and some of the, advantages that you had growing up in an officiating household?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. My father passed away 3 years ago, and I was one of 7 children in a pretty big Italian family. And my father refed over 3 decades of Division I college football and basketball. He was one of the first officials ever hired in what was the Eastern 8 at that time, before the Atlantic 10 became the Atlantic 10. And actually, my dad was part of the Big East staff in their second year that they were formed. But as a child growing up in it, it was kind of it was the best of both worlds. We didn't have much, but when my dad started reffing really in the early 70s, he was in the Ivy League level. And ironically enough, you would go to Harvard and Yale games, and there'd be 65,000 people at the Harvard-Yale game in 1973 and 4, So it was that family weekend vacation where mom would take us to to the campus on Friday. Well, my dad did his pregame stuff, and we got to walk the campuses of Ivy League schools and see a lot of historical things, as a child. And then the beauty of it for me and for us, and I know my older brother Tony, who was a big mentor to me personally too in life and in officiating, is, when we went to games, naturally you knew, some of the teams and all that and the players. It wasn't like today. You didn't have 53 games on TV every week, and but the truth of it is, your dad was on the field, so you were watching the refs. So, then we look back and realize, my dad worked like 5 Alabama Penn State games with Joe Paterno and Bear Bryant. He worked 6 Army Navy games. He worked more Army Navy games than anybody in the history of college football. And, I was on the field with Franco Harris and Lydell Mitchell when they were in college, but the beauty of it was we got to watch someone. And back then in major college football, they only used 5 officials. So my dad was a back judge, deep by himself, working sideline to sideline, so that was an amazing time to be a young kid and to see that and be in that environment too. I think the environment, as I started to officiate then and was fortunate enough to get to those different levels, that atmosphere was not overwhelming to me, because it kind of felt like I was going back home. It was the experiences that I felt of that energy of what 85, 90,000 people in a stadium meant. But it wasn't odd to us, because I think we kind of, we ran on the sidelines when we were 6, 7, and 8. So it was really cool that way. And then the basketball portion, look, when you could be 13, 14 years old and watching Rolly Massimino and Louis Carnesecca and Big John Thompson and Rick Pitino was at Providence, PJ Carlissimo was at Seton Hall. I used to go to watch my dad interact with the coaches. And, the game, naturally, you watch the game, but because of that 10 minutes to 15 minutes during the course of a basketball game, when the officials do become kind of the spotlight, right? Different than football, where the flag happens, the play occurs. In hoops, when you blow your whistle, everything stops. And then it was the art of how I started to watch them navigate those 10 seconds of time when everybody in the world was watching them, and then realized through hundreds and hundreds of hours of communication like that with him, driving up and down the highways, or sharing that with my brother, and realizing that it wasn't a sales pitch during that time, but it was an extremely important part of the perception of the game and of you as an officiating crew, and really learn the value of that, I think, at a really young age. But it was the management part of it, you know what I mean? Like, naturally, there were always a couple plays, like there is every game, that you look at as far as judgment, but it became more of a managing thing in that environment. And then watching him navigate both sports, I was hooked. I was flat out hooked, Yeah.
Let's talk about you getting your start as a basketball official. We're all here because we love the craft of officiating basketball. So I'm sure your football stories will intertwine with that. But just talk about your come up, when you got started as a basketball official. Navigating from high school to junior college, D3, and then up to D1.
Yeah.
Take us through that.
Well, believe it or not, I started my hoop career at 13 at the YMCA, and an old gentleman by the name of Bumps Nypaver used to give us Yoo-Hoo chocolate pop if we worked the parochial games in the afternoon. So my biggest check was a chocolate Yoo-Hoo pop, which was like gold. But I put a whistle in my mouth when I was 13 years old. I started at the YMCA. They did give us a couple bucks, but I just loved basketball. It was my dad's love too. I think I played football at the college level. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I loved hoops, but I loved reffing basketball, and I think that back then it was 2 men. So my older brother, Tony, who was a 20-year veteran in the NFL, back judge, and was really, really a good basketball official too. We were business partners. We started a business with no money and in a dream, and lived our entire lives pretty much intertwined, but he was my partner in hoops. he hated the travel. He hated the game, like getting to the games. He'd complain the whole way to the games in the car, and then we'd get in the gym, and for that hour and a half, we just fell in love with it again, and it was a great ride home every night. And we challenged ourselves like constantly on the court in so many different ways, which, kind of I think brothers could do a little more transparent. You would hope that we all could get to that place on the court where, you don't take things personal, but those years were phenomenal for me. And the progression where I live in Western Pennsylvania, naturally it was get an opportunity at the Division II and III level, the PSAC, the Pennsylvania D2s back then, and they're still good now, but they were really, really good back then. The IUPs, the California University of Pennsylvania, Slippery Rocks. So I saw really good D2 basketball for a pretty good swath. And ironically enough, I started college basketball when I was 25, but I went and worked women's basketball for the first 3 years of my career, which was a great experience and really set a foundation for me on how to handle coaches at the college level. And it was that bridge of understanding, again, through so many communications and the good fortune I had of someone that was living at the higher levels, of realizing the importance of a Division III sporting event, and what pressure really meant. And I kept that and still continue to preach it because I supervise that level right now in football. But the pressure of understanding that's that coach's, more than likely that coach's first job, right? Like their first head coaching experience. So that was the eye opener for me into what I really am doing now more than anything when you're trying to recruit and retain young officials and talk about, like, why do we do this? What really is it that you love about this sport and the game and the pressure portion of it, but also the empathy and understanding of all of the individuals that are involved in that game, and that was really instilled in us very early, because those D3 games look at, be 110 people in the gym, 2-hour drive in the snow, teams 3 and 8, other teams 2 and 9. Basketball might not be the best, but the pressure of those games and the understanding of that's game day for every one of those athletes. And it's such a special day for all of us. Game day is such an amazing day. But then understanding that, look, if those coaches get fired at that level because their performance is bad, like, what do they do? What is their next step in their journey of life? They're 33, 34 years old. They've been living in, college, like, apartments with their young wife maybe and a couple young kids, not making any money, and now they've gotten their first head coaching job. And if you get fired at 33, 34 years old from a head coaching job at Division III, like, what is your next step in your life's journey? What kind of pressure is that? And then really to appreciate that. So there was this really weird bridge of understanding and being empathetic to everybody involved. And then the beauty of what I know that I got to experience with it, and what I try to convey now a lot to younger people, is how many of those types of things in life that we learn in these situations, if we can put ourselves there, they cross over to the same things that you want to kind of do and become as a person. The internal challenges that you put on yourself in those types of environments, and then how you handle things like that. And that became the addiction in the sporting event, in game day, which is really cool for refs. We don't have to go into the locker room the day after the game and break the film down with a team that didn't play real well. We get to do it personally, you know what I mean? But for the most part, when officials show up in gymnasiums, it's game day. So, but I always understood that and appreciated that. And that really was the foundation of it. The progressions as you move up, the pressures change because of the dynamics of the things. And if you get to the professional level, the pressures change in a different regard, but it's still the same thing. You know what I mean? And it's still that same process that you do at the high school level or at the college level, a small college level. So really the rest of it is for public consumption, but the internal portions of it really never changed for me. You know, you just grow with it.
Appreciate you sharing that. That was great. I want to go a little practical for everybody that's on the call. We have a lot of high school officials and college officials. So my question is, and I'll frame it up. You know, one of the cool things about Crown Refs, I mean, we started this as a platform, as a way to connect officials, like-minded officials from around the world who absolutely love officiating, want to be part of a team. So it's cool to have this universal group, because back home on our local board, and this is scattered throughout all over the country, local associations, there's a lot of politics involved. There's not a lot of people love officiating, and it could really negatively deter an official. So I was speaking to a ref today who was a little discouraged about having to navigate through all of that, the politics, the not so great partnering, the ego, the veterans who don't want to help the younger officials. So what advice would you have for the high school official who's trying to know they want to get to college, but still have to kind of play the game and, you know, work within that high school landscape?
Best question you could have asked. I mean, I can honestly tell you all that really over the last year and a half, as the pandemic started to break and we realized the massive amounts of officials that we lost. And now it's kind of like climate change, right? Like there's something obviously happening. We're not smart enough to know exactly what it is, but in this platform, it's happening. The shortage is here. The epidemic is upon us. Okay, so what happens because of that? Honestly, what happens right now from a 10,000 foot level is officials are probably getting fast tracked to a higher level quicker than the normal progression, right? So that's not a terrible thing. It's an opportunity. But see, I lived in an officiating world where it's not an athletic. The difference between a good athlete and a good official is when you have a good athlete and that athlete's recruited to go to college at the Division I level, if you can get 3 years out of that athlete before they leave, that's their lifespan, right? But officials are like dog years. So every year for an athlete is really like 5 years of officiating. So I am always really reluctant or apprehensive and nervous about moving a really talented young official too quick, because I don't want them to be in that environment where there's unexpected things change and he's at the wrong level or a higher level where he hasn't experienced those mistakes or that challenge down at a lower level. And now the opportunity that was presented, they got there quick. Something unexpected really happened a couple of times, and all of a sudden this amazing career that has 25 years left in it has been hurt. So there's a patience level. What I have found out locally and in multiple states now, as we've gone around again, trying to recruit and retain and change the narrative of what is this officiating experience. You have to get real about it. There's a portion of this, just like anything else, that has political underlying tendencies, right? That politicalness of officiating comes into play when we as officials, and I say it this way because there are portions of politics, just like portions of life, that we know aren't really being done in the fair and unbiased, objective way, right? But we can't change it individually, and it may not be able to change even collectively. It would be really unique if it could change. So, but it falls in the category, just like for me in life, is okay, I can control what I can control. So now if I know that the politics, speaking personally, I don't know if it affects the entire group. My assumption would be it would, especially for those that have been working a while now, and the postseason assignments come out, right? And you see people that you've been on the field or court with, and you're like, nothing for nothing. I don't dislike her or him, but they're just not that good. But they're getting these semifinal games, or they're working the high school championships, and there's a political undertone to that, right? So it puts a negative taste in your mouth. but it only puts a negative taste in your mouth if you understand, or if you've used the postseason assignments as like this check mark on your box of, hey, is the season successful? It's not successful unless I get to the semifinals. So we set that up. So again, I always looked at that as I have looked at my life before I argued with anybody, even if I felt like I was right, was like, you better look in the mirror first and say, what are your shortcomings? What don't you do well? What didn't you do right? These kind of cases, what can I control? What can I control? But I know what I can control. And under the categories of what I could control, then I based what I wanted to get out of officiating. And the irony of it, and I know it sounds hard to say probably for someone who's worked the Super Bowl and, you know, a handful of Sweet 16s and 12 NCAA tournaments and all that kind of fluff and duff that's on your bio. I never reffed a game for the jewelry. All of my NCAA blue patches are on the dryer upstairs in my laundry room because I took them off my shirt when I came home from the tournament and stuck it on the dryer. I knew that those opportunities, some of it had to do with my performance that season, I would think. But then I also knew that there was a lot of those selections that were check marking other things that the national people had to do, geographics, you know, multiple different things were taking place to get those assignments. So I never used that as a benchmark as to whether it was a successful season. I used an internal challenge for all of it. You know, why am I doing this and what am I trying to get out of it? And I controlled that. And so I think when I really embraced that fact, look, I was a National Football League referee for 13 years and was on national TV 60 times a year in Division I basketball. And the announcers would say, tonight's officials are so-and-so, so-and-so, and Gene Steratore, who was also an NFL ref. That didn't go over well in the NFL. When you're an NFL referee, you're not also an NFL ref. Oh, by the way, he also does this. No, you are the NFL ref. So that wasn't a good thing sometimes in that world for me to be a two-headed kind of animal, right? And conversely, the blue bloods that just work basketball and were great at it, you know, this guy can't be working NFL seasons and then pop in here and be that good at basketball either. So we're not going to work at these higher level things or at the end of the national stuff. But I never used that. That wasn't what my goal was. So I think the real thing is the politics are there. You pray to God that they are limited. We always hope that we are treated in our selections and our evaluations the same way that we're being taught to manage and handle the games, right? In an unbiased, objective fashion, understanding some imperfection. But at the end of the day, it's not personal. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And all any great official ever wants is the same treatment back. And when that doesn't happen, it's counterproductive to what we really, the real reason why we do this anyway, at least one of the big reasons, right? So when that happens, it's very difficult to navigate the whispers, the gossip, the locker room talk, the evaluation systems, the fact that this generation has almost, got my son's working a Division II basketball game in Minnesota right now. So I watch it streamed. I never saw myself on a tape until I was like at what is now called the colonial level of football. You know, it was the Yankee conference then, but I had never seen myself on film. This day and age, you all get to watch all of your high school games, your small college games on TV. They're graded by video. The grading system, this evaluation category, is a very dangerous animal when it comes to the progression of officials, unless it's done appropriately, in my humble opinion. If you get grades from an evaluator, look, there's going to be 3 or 4 plays in every basketball game that are 50-50 plays, right? So block charge, whatever the play is. And now the evaluator grades it a different way. And you really feel comfortable with what you did, and it's a miss or a downgrade. Unfortunately, we're human. So when you get your evaluation, what do? You look through the evaluation and you go to the right column or wherever that is to see where it says I missed what I missed. You pull the play up on the tape, you look at it. There's 3 of those 5 plays are really tough plays. And then all of a sudden the bugs start, right? The little gremlins start. Those 3 plays, that grader went with me on one of them, and the other 2 said I missed them. And I know I didn't miss that play. So now I'm in this world of, why would they do this to me? Or the human element, the paranoia sets in. When I am now kind of developing even a system, hopefully here in Western PA, for what is just called an observation that has no 1s, 2s, 3s. Your judgment isn't even being graded. I don't care whether you missed the call or not. Really, you're supposed to get the call right. And if your judgment's really not that good, you'll be smart enough to know that maybe this isn't just what I want to do. But it's not whether you got the call right or wrong. It's what position were you in when you made that judgment, right? That's a teachable moment. How did I navigate this? Did I anticipate maybe a second before this play occurred, the possibility that that's what would happen on that play coming up? There's ways to teach it. So the politics is never leaving. You can't control the politics. The gossipy stuff where officials talk about other officials is just a bad part of life, and one that you should always just remove yourself out of, because it doesn't pay back any benefit for you as a human. And the only advice, and the best advice I could give, is find these things within your own critiques, because all great officials critique themselves way more than any grader can critique you. So live in that world, like you live in that world in your life, and be honest with yourself and know, I need to do that a little better. I'll try this next time. And then actually pick 2 or 3 things, implement them the next time you're out, almost over exaggerate them a couple of times when you're on the court. If you're aware enough to remember it when you're down there, right? And then make mental note, like, at 12 minutes, I had a play and I kind of moved a little more. It was a little more emphatic and I almost felt uncomfortable, like maybe I was showcasing it. And then go and look at that play. And so, you know what? That wasn't over exaggerating it. You know what I mean? I looked a little more engaged there. There's ways to take that mosaic and do it yourself. But I think the more that you do it in that world, it'll become more of a personal thing for you, a quiet thing that you do within yourself. And I think once you start navigating it in that way, the other critiques are good. The politics become way less important, because that's not the goal anyway. So you've lessened the value of what it means. Doesn't mean that you can't stay competitive, because look, you should want to work the last game of the season, not because it's the championship, but because it's the last time I can work until next year. So that happens to be the last game of the year. So look at it that way. Like, if there's a game being played and someone's paying someone to do it, I want to ref it. It'll always end up and be the Super Bowl, because it's the last game, or the national championship, or the state playoff. But never say I didn't get to this point. And the reason I didn't, politics. You know, so-and-so was a brother-in-law of the guy who assigns the games. If you do that, I mean, I hate to say it harshly, but that's your fault, because you set that as something that you know you can't control and made it too important in your life. So keep it in a more personal and quiet place, and I think the rewards become much deeper, honestly.
Gene knows how to answer a question. There's a lot of great info to unpack.
That's why CBS only gives me 9 seconds, Paul. You know what I mean? It's like Steratore. Just say if it's a catch or not. We're not here. This is a true and false thing. It's not an essay, but I'm going to take advantage when I can.
It's a gift to be able to answer long form like that. A couple great things I just want to touch on. You mentioned, happiness and not predicating the success of your season based on your playoff assignment, something we've spoken about a lot here. We got to learn a little bit about the politics from the NFL, into, while you were refereeing basketball. We interviewed Dee Cantner about a year ago. She had a great line for comparison is the thief of joy. Like, your career has nothing to do with anybody else's career. And the sooner you can just control what you can control and focus on yourself, the better off you'll be, the happier you'll be. I think a big thing too with the gossip is not worrying about people's opinions. You also mentioned breaking down film and you being the most important, or you being the biggest critiquer of yourself.
Right.
It's great to have an observer there. It's great to have other officials there, but eventually, and everyone on the call, once you evolve to the level, the confidence level, the experience level, you're going to be the only one that matters about your game, because you're going to do the most work breaking your film down and just, finding ways to improve yourself. So don't rely on anybody else for that. Let's go into, I'm big on kindness. You mentioned empathy. These are like big picture traits that are super important because they trickle down into every other part of officiating. We're so big on being a great partner here, like, and back to just kindness and not worrying about other people's opinions or talking behind people's back. I'm never talking negatively about anybody ever again for the rest of my life. I hope I can stay true to that, but I've had a good streak going of like a few years where not even in my mind I'm thinking negatively about a person.
That's right.
And that's a good place to be. And I want everybody to kind of trying to get to that. But let's just talk about partnering. I call this like, we're the great partnering network. Everybody on the call, everybody in our platform out of our 215 refs, they're great people, they're great partners. So just talk about the importance of being a great partner and, how you were able to show that in your career.
Look, that's where it really got deep for me. And I got to circle back just real quick, and I'll try to be brief, but what you just said, look, we get put in environments where adults act out of character, completely out of character, right? What is it that we're really doing? Think about what you're doing. I'm a freak history fanatic and have been my whole life, right? And the Greek philosophies and the virtues of happiness and empathy and those words, to me, I humbly try to navigate those, understanding my imperfections. But this environment put those things to the ultimate test. You are in an environment where you have different entities that have different goals. But what I found was, in that moment, there has to be something that all of us that are participating in these events share. And something of that we all share must be bigger than all of us in order for it to be important. Like, that's how life rolls. The important things in life are like that. People come from different streets to get to the same road, but there's something on the same road that pays everybody that comes to it from whatever avenue they come. And this thing we do, the game wins. So you need to define what the game is and understand what the game means to all participating entities. And then it takes you to sometimes why the behaviors are such based on where they're coming from with the game. But the game is the ultimate portion that we're all held accountable to, right? We as officials humbly get the responsibility during that contest to kind of be the keepers of the game within this element. That's one of the biggest roles of being an official. You are there to rule things unbiasedly, to be as objective as possible, to have a little more leniency toward, unexpected and unpopular behaviors in the heat of the moment in an intense environment. But you don't take them personally, and you need to be able to control yourself to navigate them, to understand they're going to happen, but also have to draw this line within that place of, and I did this so many times to some of the most famous people, but I always did it with I never talked to somebody, very rarely, purposely did I ever talk to someone in a basketball arena without having my hand over my mouth, because the words I didn't need shared. But most times when it got to that place, that conversation was, Coach, I don't mind you verbally lashing every once in a while. It doesn't affect me in a personal way. I get what you're doing and I know why you're doing it, and I'm okay with it. But if what you start doing is not good for the game, then you leave me no options, because I am going to do what's good for the game tonight. And truthfully, even though you want to win and that's what's good for you, you're held accountable to the same thing. I'm keeping you in that window, but I'm going to give you space. I'm not going to be this, hey, I'm the parking lot attendant, your car is on. You know, how many times did we get a ticket going 56 when it's a 55 miler? I'm not that guy. I'm a 65 and a 55, you get a ticket. Same in this business, right? I'm going to give you 10 miles within this parameter. Then amongst the fraternity or the team, the third team on the court or the field, that's where the beauty of what we do really comes into full effect, when everybody is in sync in that moment. And you got to understand, you're going to have plays with veterans as young officials that are in games. Look at, here's the reality. You walk on the court, 3 officials are standing opposite bench. The coaches come out with their entourage, right? The band's playing, here comes the 6 assistants, and then here comes the kingpin. And he hits the court. What's the first thing he or she does? They look across the court. There they are. I recognize 2. I don't recognize the third, right? Now we go over a fist bump, handshake, small talk. Great to see you, Sue. Great to see you, Jim. What's your name again? And now, as fate would have it, we're new. First 5 minutes of the game, I've got a tough call. I'm the one no one knows. And we look over, and this veteran is standing next to a coach, and it doesn't look like the conversation is in defense of me. It looks like we're siding away from me. That happens in this game at times. It's not a good thing, but it occurs. Don't take that, again, those are the challenges. Keep staying to your place. Sometimes it's hard to talk to a veteran official about that if you see it happen. Usually it doesn't happen as often as you know, you hope these are all exceptions, right, to the negative portion. Look, the last 4 years of my career in the Big Ten, when I left the Big East, when it downsized and really only took 4 or 5 ACC games, I stayed in the Big Ten consortium because I didn't want to fly one night and go to the next big game the next night. My body was declining. But the truth of it is, if I was at Michigan State on a Thursday, I wanted to stay in the same hotel for my body's sake, but I also wanted to work at Eastern Michigan the next day because I wanted 2 young officials with me. Because of my upbringing, and one of the reasons why I retired kind of in an official's world in the prime of your career at 55, was there was something bigger to this for me. It wasn't, I celebrated my personal successes with the people in my life that sacrificed a lot more than I did, right? My children, and the days alone, and we enjoyed those personally. But officiating is never, to anybody in my world, at least from where I come from, the officiating portion of what you've attained is wonderful, but you have never come full circle in this fraternity until you start giving back to the fraternity that brought you up. And whether it was a father, or it didn't matter, my biggest mentors, even though my brother was that huge and my dad was a great role model, they weren't related to me, but they were older guys and gals that you'd get in the car with. That's where this thing happens for all of you young guys and gals. I will tell you, get in the vehicles with your partners as quickly as you can and get to that drive together every time you can, for as long as you can drive together to the event, and then drive out with them. And if you're close enough to home, I'm not an alcohol consumer, but I learned an awful lot in booths and bars where guys were sitting with salt shakers and ketchup bottles and talking about positioning and plays and learning how to officiate, and talking about the coach and ref engagements that were taking place throughout that game. There is so much value in that fraternity. And then the awareness on the court. Look, there's times when you have a hard play. And how do you navigate that hard call when a coach is misbehaving? And truthfully, you don't go opposite the court after you make that call, right? You tell that trail official that's next to the table after you finish presenting your foul to them, go across. I'm going to stay here right now because I'm going to give this guy or gal 30 seconds of time right now and have this not confrontational conversation, but I'm going to manage that portion. When officials are on the same page on their judgments and consistency, naturally the game goes much better. When they understand the managing part that the crew is doing, because the collective is so much more important than the individual in anything in life. That's the essence of what makes this thing go so well. And that's what you have to always try to acquire, right? You must do that. And sometimes you'll be the young one on the game, and then very quickly, 2 nights later, you're the referee that's got to handle 2 or 3 other officials that might not be that experienced. So live the roles, but continue to work within that team, that fraternity. It's when the special stuff takes place, you know.
Thank you for that thoughtful answer. Let me be a great partner myself, and I want to pass the ball over. I know we have a lot of people in the chat that want to ask questions. So let me ship it over to Connor. He's from Ohio, but he's going to college right now in Western Pennsylvania. So maybe after the call, I can connect you two. Connor, why don't you on
Nice.
mic and say hello to Gene?
Hey, Gene. Thanks for being here tonight. Yeah, I'm a freshman at Waynesburg University, and an official, obviously. My question to you is, how did you balance being an NFL referee and an NBA, or not an NBA, a college basketball official at the same time? Because the big thing for me I'm struggling with is trying to balance college athletics and pursuing my dream of officiating.
It's a really good question. And you know what? I realized really young, because I was a 3-sport athlete. And then when the playing days ended, I realized that once I started officiating, what I really loved about being an athlete naturally was game day. But I think what I loved more than anything was navigating as many plates in the air as I could have in the air, right? So when you're a student, you have your studies, you might be in a relationship, you might have a side job, and then I'm reffing. So you're navigating all these things. And when you're reffing, your body needs to be in good physical condition. It's important to keep your body in physical condition, not for vanity's sake, but for longevity. It's important to eat the right way. It's important to get as much sleep as you can. That was what athletes do every day. I never quit being an athlete. I will be honest with you, Connor. I wasn't hired in the Big East in basketball because I was refereeing in the Big East in football for like 7 years. And that supervisor didn't think it was good to have both. And then when I got to the NFL, he had told me, it wasn't good to be in the NFL and work in the Big East. And then I became a referee in the NFL, and it wasn't good to be a referee in the NFL. And then the NFL was like, are you going to ref basketball too? You're going to be really visible. I hate to say this, but the fact that people kept telling me that I couldn't do it, that was it. That's all they needed to say to me was, it can't be done. And my older brother was one of the biggest proponents of it because he was worried about, exhaustion. I was a single dad for the last 18 years. The kids are in their 30s now, running a business, working 85 Division I games and prepping for 25 hours a week for the NFL game each week. And it was like, it can't be done. It's not humanly possible. That was all it needed to be said. And it wasn't to walk around to say how I do that. It was all personal. It was like, can it be done? I don't know, but if I don't try it, I'm never going to know. So it was that, which became, again, a real quiet personal thing that it was like, give me more, just because I want to see where is the point that I'm like, okay, this is it. I can't do any more. I have to be honest, I never got to that place. I retired. But it was some of that. But also understanding one thing for sure, because of that decision, the responsibility to be so on point then, right? Because you can't work at New England on Sunday and then be at Michigan State on Monday and not be ready. Because the minute that you are just human and slack, the reason why you're slacking is because your head's still in New England, right? So it was another layer of pressure. It was another layer of, if you're just regular old human guy tonight, they're coming down on you because of your exposure. So it was even like, okay, put the mic, look at, when you referee in the NFL, real quick to go back to grading, you are graded 7 times on every play from 7 different cameras. Okay. When I was in the peak of NFL career 15 years ago, if you had 7 mistakes during the season, then you probably weren't getting a playoff game. Just 7 mistakes. That's no calls. That's incorrect calls. That's incorrect judgment. 7 mistakes in a season, graded 7 angles. When you're getting downgraded by the sky cam that's on a wire, like, how am I going to see the hold? The only camera that found the hold was a wire hanging 10 feet above the stadium. I would text back in my comment answers, if you hang me from a wire, I can see it, because the grade didn't bother me, but it did bother me if I looked at that play and thought, you didn't read run on the play side when that came, and you didn't work from the inside out from the guard to the tackle tight end gap. You quickly went wide thinking it was a pass play and went to the tackle gap, and your guard held and you missed it. That bothered me because I wasn't programmed properly for that 1.5 seconds for my muscle memory to do what it should have done. That was on me then. And I might not have been downgraded. It didn't matter. But maybe I bit off too much at some point in life. But for me, I did it, you know what I mean? So I think it's in that world where you say, how did you do it? It really meant that I had to really be unbelievably efficient in how I navigated the 18 or 19 hours I was awake every day, and could never neglect the most important things in life along that process. And neither of those things were football and basketball, right? It was my faith, it was my family, it was my children interactions, so far in a different category. Below that, though, it did become this, because this was what you decided to do. People's careers were on the line based on things you might decide. So preparation became the ultimate challenge for me. So when I was in hotels 5 days a week in basketball at 1 o'clock, after 2 flights got you there, after getting up at 4:30 in the morning, from 1 to 4, you put an hour and a half of NFL film on and watch the teams that you were going to ref the next 2 weeks on film. So you could see their tendencies, their trends, what your matchup was going to be. So in that 1.5 hours, I devoted to that. And then shower, right? Solid at 3:30, get back your head back into where you're going in 2.5 hours, because the ball's a different shape, and get focused on this matchup tonight. And it was in that world that you lived it. You can navigate it. It requires an amazing OCD level of organization. And then it becomes really fun. You just have to be careful that if you have a false start on Sunday, you don't say traveling, right? Or you don't do something crazy. But that's kind of how I think you can do that. You can do it. And then it's that internal thing, like, see how much can you do?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes.
If Gene can do it, Connor, you can do it. There's your permission right
We
there.
all can do it if Gene
Right?
can do it. I swear. I promise you.
No, but Connor, you're doing great work, man. Just stay humble, stay patient, and you're a college basketball player and about to be a college ref. So
Connor, you play at Waynesburg now?
College baseball, Paul, but yeah,
baseball.
I'm
Play
a
college baseball? Well,
Waynesburg.
3 of
Yeah.
my employees at my company live in Waynesburg.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, you're 20 miles up 79 from me right now.
Yeah.
If you need any help in anything like that locally, in any ways, you reach out to me. Paul has my email address, and you feel more than free to share that address with anyone on this call, and anything that relates to that. You're in my backyard though, so if there's
Okay.
anything I can
Thank
do,
you. Thank you.
don't ever hesitate to reach out to me, man. Okay,
Appreciate it.
you got
Yep.
it.
Great stuff. Let's stay in Ohio. Gonna go to Tate Fishman. Tate, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on the call tonight, and ask away to Gene.
So first, like Connor, I just want to say thank you for being here. And also, like Connor, I'm a younger official just kind of getting started in this. Obviously, I have big aspirations to have this as my career one day and do this at the highest level possible. But obviously, you have to start locally. You have to start with the local leagues, the junior highs, the high schools. So my question to you was, what are some of the things that you did when you were starting off as a younger official to kind of this could be on or off the court? What were some of the things you did as a younger official to not only gain trust of your partners, but also as from your local assigners, the athletic directors, and other people like that who can have the power to give you games or not?
Yeah, that's a good question. You hope the strength of the chapters and the traditional senses work the way that they should work, right? I mean, I tried to work every single day. I know when I started, I tried to get finished with my job at 3:30 so I could get to a junior high gym. And at that time, get the $15 for the junior high game tape, was $15. And then hope I could get a JV game that was less than 45 minutes away so I could double dip and then work the JV game, and then kind of hang at least for the first half of the varsity game to watch and see how the big guys and girls worked, and to feel that environment and see what they were doing. And then, I was fortunate back then, and things are a little different now. The chapters handled a lot of the assignments, and they really did take care of their chapters, and they had enough games around this area now. There's assigners that do 5 classifications and they're not involved in the local chapter. So how do I get in the big 56 or those types of things? How many camps do I go to? Am I wasting my money at camp? I got a tag on my back that says 186 and somebody's looking at a sheet to remember my name. Am I wasting my time and money here? You know what I mean? So you guys are faced, and girls are faced with more challenges in that regard, but get as many reps as you can get. Always take advantage, even if it's a playground game in the summer, okay, I'm going to work on my positioning at center this entire day because the games aren't really that good or the pressure's not really there. Always when you work those levels and go even down to the grade schools where the boys and girls, like, they double dribble a couple times and they walk, and you just can't call everyone, and mom is like, losing her mind, or dad's yelling at you because Susie just, quit she's walking, can't you call it? That's part of it. Never internalize it, but give yourself a couple things, and most of them are judgment things during those times, on how you can hone your stuff to get better, right? Master how you handle a play when you're lead and you have a foul and 2 players go to the floor on the baseline, and now what am I going to do for the next 9 seconds of that play? And simulate it in your mind, even though there's nobody really at the table. Okay, but like, these are the tips. In that scenario I just gave you, you pause, you call the foul, you finish the play, you look confident, strong, you're not overly excited. Maybe you gave a quick prelim, but you finished the play. Now you have these 7 to 10 steps of life that are going to take you out to where you're going to give that foul call to the table, right? So the table, really, you haven't finished the foul until you're done giving the administrative portions. You're still in control. In those 7 to 10 steps, if you walk the first 4 of those steps from the baseline out and then start to run, the optic is that you're lazy and you're hurrying to get to a place you should have been to because you walked and then ran. I mean, these are subtle things that change the dynamic of what you look like to the fans and to the people that assign games. But if you pause after that play, finish that play, and I'm going to briskly, really briskly run for the first 4 steps and then gear down into a fast walk to stop and present, then you look like that young man's hustling, but not over hustling. He's fully in control. And then when you're finished, you point to where we're inbounding it, or if we're shooting it, you turn in 2 or 3 steps early that are quicker than the last 3. Put this whole thing in a completely different dynamic, and you've done nothing other than just present what you finished, right? And then put it one more thing into it. So now you have that same play, and now you run 4 and you walk 3 or finish, and right before you're getting ready to tell the table it's 22, that coach who was yelling that you missed it when you blew the whistle, and then when you started jogging, he's moving up to his box and yelling again. Right before you present to the table, you like stop and look at him or her like, and check them down. No confrontation, not demeaning to you, but respect. I'm not finished yet. So when they start, you missed it, you missed it. Now they come up, their hands are up, and you're not, and right at this point you go, and they stop. And the optic to the world is you didn't do anything yet except look, but you shocked them, and then you finish your play, right? And then you tell that trail, go across, and then you walk right there, and you say, top, that's a block, you missed it. That's a charge, you missed it. Coach, if it's what you said and it's not what I saw, then you're right, I missed it. But you putting your arm ups tonight is not good for the game. Now wait until I'm finished at the table. Treat me with the respect I'm treating you. And you do it with him on your back shoulder or her on your back shoulder, not even nose to nose. That optic in those 12 seconds will cause people to look and go, I don't know if this young man got this play right or not. But one thing I know is he's comfortable and confident in his skin. He's going to be able to do this business. That other assigning stuff, right? Get to the people that do the assigning. Let them know when you're available. Go out every single day and try to get better on some little nuance, even if it's just that 10-second interval I just told you about, and hone it. And take every piece of your puzzle and do that. Listen, I will promise all of you on this call now, I have been in 9 states in the last 8 months here doing this recruit and retain. You're all going to have more games than you want if you want to work this business, and you can work it, because there aren't enough of us. So that should never be a problem. And I pray to God it's never a problem for anyone. And I will say this to you too. In the beginning, it'll probably feel like, man, I'm ready now. I'm ready now. And you probably are. Once you get on that stage and you succeed, observers, supervisors, and assigners, they need people that they know they can put on one of these 8 games on Tuesday and know my phone's not going to ring. So when you can officiate, you'll get games, because guys and gals that assign games, they want people that can work games, so coaches don't call them 10 minutes after that game's over and they have to be on the phone for 30 minutes. So you'll control your destiny in some regards that way. Just don't get discouraged when it feels like it's going slower than it needs to. You know what I mean? And continue to communicate. Camps are great if they're not overcharging you, or if they're not putting you in a position to say the only way you're going to get in my league is if you come to my camp. You know what I mean? There's a lot of great camps that teach out there for the right reasons. And at your young age right now, you go to camps that tell you where you need to be on the court and where your eye muscle movement needs to take you to be in a position to anticipate. These are the top 7 things that happen when I'm slot opposite of the power of the ball. And I'm going to play and look in that area weak side and see what's happening on those plays that most consistently happen. People teach that in summer camps. People teach that. And when your game increases, It's just like an athlete. They'll find you. I promise they'll find you.
Thank you, Gene.
Terrific stuff. Let's take it to Maryland. We have John Nally. John, say hello to Gene.
Hey, Gene. Just wanted to say thanks again for taking the time to talk to us. This has been really awesome, and I know for me personally, you're someone I've always looked up to as somebody who's been able to officiate at the highest level in both football and basketball, because I'm a two-sport official also with football and basketball. So my question's similar to Connor's in terms of being able to navigate, trying to climb up both ladders, so to speak, at the same time, and, trying to see how high you can get. Do you feel like it's any different now than when you were coming up trying to navigate that world? And is there any advice you would give to somebody who's, doing the same thing, trying to get up both ladders?
I would say do it as long as you can. The world has become more of a specialist kind of world, right? Even the high school athletes, they don't play 3 sports anymore. They're one athlete in this position. That's what I do. That's it. There are so many advantages to these 2 sports, at least because I know I experienced them. I learned an awful lot about how to work football because of what I learned in basketball. But I also learned an awful lot about how to navigate basketball based on what I was experiencing in football. So to me, they bridged very well and played off of each other very well. I felt real comfortable, and I was a downfield official when I first started, and those plays felt like POV plays. They felt like a little body contact without a lot of displacement. I was categorizing actions from both sports and finding where they crossed over. I was taking the fact that a football field was 100 yards long and 54 1/3 yards wide, and that span of being able to have to use your periphery and have depth and space as your friend in football. Because the further you got away, provided you could feel it, you could see the ball over there, but you were supposed to be watching the blocking, but you knew where the runner was. When I would leave a football field and then go on a basketball court, it was like, holy heck, this whole court's in my periphery all of a sudden. You know what I mean? So that played well for me. I used those to, I hope, realized where there were differences, but also realized where they complemented each other really, really well. And I really wanted to stay involved in both because of that reason. That like from the pure officiating portion of it, that's why I really wanted to stay in that, because they were really different, but they also had a lot of bridges. The ability to have more verbal communication on a football field, right? Have things said to you that you could let go, but in a basketball arena, you almost had to address because the people 9 rows up heard every word he just said or she said. I used to get guys that would say, look, man, you can't let Izzo say that kind of stuff, like doesn't look good. And I was thinking like, 20 hours ago, Bruce Arians was 10,000 times worse than that. Like, this wasn't even that bad to me. And I would laugh at my hoop guys and go, guys are really thin skinned. I'm going to take you out on this football field when you have 10 guys screaming at you, saying stuff like, and you got to learn to let this go and not take this, use that like to an advantageous place. Right. And, so in those regards, I thought it helped really, really a lot in that awareness element, which honestly, when you first start, you've got to get the judgment things. Heck, you have panic attacks about, am I going to get my hand up and point? Out of bounds plays are harder than you think until you do it. They're hard. People laugh. Like I laugh at my youngest now. I said, the only 2 plays I'm worried about you missing now are like out of bounds plays and goaltending. because, you guys were so good on the couch, but it's different when you're down there. But those elements of taking some of the nuances that you can apply to both, they'll feed each other really, really well. And I think the biggest challenge that you may have is as you progress in life, and I don't know where you are personally, but it's a time element. It's time away from those that you love. It's having someone that doesn't have to be there and cheerleading for you all the time, but understands your passion. And then you also understanding that you're going to leave 120 days out of the year because of this passion I'm chasing. But I'll be damned if I'm not giving you these 245 other days like of undivided attention, because you're allowing me to experience my passion and never forget that portion. Like my ex-wife, who was wonderful, sat on bleachers forever, pregnant with kids, watched games, you know what I mean? She never did my laundry, not my basketball laundry. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not coming home. You leave in a football world, think about it. You have a wife or a significant other that works 5 days a week. It's Friday night. The kids are home. You're putting stuff in your bag and leaving. I'm working a high school game Friday night. I get home at 11:30. I throw my football uniform in the laundry if I work college football, because tomorrow morning on Saturday, her day off with the two kids, you packed your bag at 8 a.m. and drove 3 hours for a college football game that started at 1 o'clock, and you pulled in home at 8 o'clock Saturday night. Sunday's like the day of rest. You better take care of the house Sunday because she's going to work Monday. You must always have the empathy and understanding to realize what the people that are in your life are sacrificing for that, if you're in that position, right? So that's the personal part of it. The other side, use those elements where you can bridge them. You'll get better at both sports as a result of it. I'll answer short like that from now on, Pete. I'm just going to do that. Like, how about more Belichick, less Hockey?
We're going to break out the shot clock, Gene.
Yeah, get the shot clock, B. I'll call you back. Hold on 1 second real quick. Andrew, how was your game?
Good.
Great. Are you on the road?
Yeah, give me a shout when you can.
I sure will. Be careful. Love you. Bye. Now the real part of reffing, right? Game's over, 3-hour drive to the next city, an hour and a half away from where the next college game is tomorrow at 5. So now you worry about them being on the road from 9 o'clock till midnight somewhere in North Dakota. This life we live, guys and gals.
Let me just share one new idea we've had on our mentor platform we have a voice channel called the pre and post game commute, and it's intended for officials to be able to start their own call, maybe on a way to a game or driving home from a game. They just notify people in the group, like, hey guys, I'll be on channel 36 in 5 minutes. Would love to chat. And then there's just community members that are just there being great partners for support. So been 2 weeks old, but it's been really helpful so far.
Oh, that's a great idea. You might be putting 15 people in the car driving home from the games. Sharing post-game stuff. That's a wonderful idea. That's great.
Thank you. When I published that you were going to be joining us, I also said, if you're interested in a guest pass, send me a message. So we had one person that sent me a message, Carl. Carl, let you unmute, but you got to join our group after, okay? No, I'm just kidding. Thanks for joining us, Carl. Why don't you say hello to Gene?
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate the S-Pass. Out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Gene, thanks for taking some questions. I appreciate it. Been doing this for about 15 years now. Started working with my dad when I was 18, so I've been kind of growing up with it. I remember taking pencil and paper tests with him when I was a young kid. So that's kind of my backstory into officiating. I want to get a little bit more specific here, though. The last couple of years, the main focus for me has been dealing with the coaches and the confrontational aspect of things. It's been one of my top goals the last 3 or 4 seasons. I've been fortunate to get a pretty healthy playoff schedule So I feel like I've been getting better at it, but I just kind of want to get your 2 cents worth of anything that you've done to help yourself in that regard, or articles you've read or tips you've heard from anybody else in regards to managing the conflict with coaches and or players in that regard.
Tell me what parts of that you want to focus most on in your own self-evaluation. What parts of it do you feel like, boy, I don't know where to go to next now when that happens?
I think a lot of it stems to, like you had talked about before, it's the confrontation after the 50-50 call, or the coach that doesn't agree with anything that you're going to say throughout the rest of the night. Locally, I've been able to stick within a lot of the same conferences. So I think I've generated a face of, familiarity. So that's not too much of a concern with me. But being able to have that short 20 to 30-second conversation, if time allows, that's where I think I struggle and kind of stumble over what my true knowledge base is. So, I pride myself on knowing rules and some of the verbiage that can get you out of a situation like that. But I still feel like I can do a lot better, and just want to have any sort of advice from you. It'd be great.
Here's one way. There's a couple things I could tell you real quick. A lot of the communication in a basketball setting that I did was when the ball was live and I was slaughter trail on the bench side. Nobody was watching. The world watches the ball. The world doesn't watch off the ball. At the higher levels, TV doesn't show the coach talking to an official while the play is happening, because they're not going to leave the ball. The moment that you know that the play is stopped and I have to have this engagement, this verbal judo in this window of time, which is going to have a big effect on how people perceive me, possibly, or the game, or the condition. There are so many different ways. And here's what's challenging is we're all different personalities, right? My smirky smile, that meant I really was upset with you, kind of, was the way I handled that. I was maybe more of an A than more a passive person. But there's no like, this is how you do it, because we're just different creatures. But one thing we have to all be able to do is have a communication level, right? It's such a good question, and I could give you like 20 different one-liners, but I don't know if they would apply. But for the sake of it, listen, one of them was what I was just said earlier there, it's a hard play, and I used to say that. I'd turn and look and say, hard play, coach, hard play. Yep. He wasn't there. I felt he was there, coach. I mean, that's what I felt. Boom. Well, you know what? You haven't been right all night. I'm working at it though, coach. I'm working at it. Not block charge play. Go to the table. All right, I'll stay on this side. Coach, the defender was facing his opponent and retreating. Coaches don't know the rules. When we start quoting rules to coaches, this is the nerdy ref that's really not an athlete, right? Like, unfair to say. They don't know the rules. Empathize with, what's he really trying to do? Engage me? Yeah. On a hard play? Yeah. Hard play. Wasn't that hard. You were in a different spot than me. Maybe I should have been out here. If it looked easy from here, coach, it wasn't that easy from where I was. It was a hard play. When you go up and down the court 4 times and they have said something every single time, right? They're out there. They're about to wake up here in the next month. They haven't woken up yet. They're just getting in their rhythm again. I would go and be slaughter trail next to them, and there's da-da-da, and I would go while the ball was going, coach, I'm mediocre at best when no one's talking to me all game. If you keep talking, coach, I'm not even going to get fit. I'm not even going to be half as good. And I'm already struggling. Self-deprecating, little humor, little human element. And then if they decide to take that and weaponize that against you, then you respectfully look at them and say, we can't talk now then. I'm giving you the hand. I can't talk. I'm not talking now. I've given you this opportunity to engage me. I'm letting you know I'm listening to you. I'm not demeaning the game or downplaying the value of each decision. But if you're going to constantly just offer your opinions, Coach, I would say this, Coach, every time I come down, you have an opinion. If I answered every opinion that comes every time I blow my whistle, Coach, this game will last 6 hours because there's 10,000 people got an opinion right now. I know yours is a little more important. I can't listen to opinions all night. Things like that, you know, I'm in the human element. Same other position, tough play. You really feel like you got this play right now. And maybe 30 seconds early, you said, Coach, if it happened the way you said it happened and it's not what I saw, then I missed it. That's one line. Now we play 2 more minutes. We got another play. I nailed this one. He's acting or she's acting the same way. Now when I come out, I'm not this guy who's giving you the back and forth. Now I'm going to look and go, not that play, not that one. That one I'm good with. Okay? Like it or not, because I know one thing. You're watching that get that play in about an hour. And I'm going to tell you now, respectfully, with a little more authority now, you've overstepped your line. That one I got right. Now we're going to just keep playing. And I'm leaving. I'm not coming over to you now. You've disappointed me now. Right? You're not being combative to me. I'm disappointed in your behavior because you're acting like an adolescent. And I'm trying to pacify you a little and give you rope. And now you're disappointing me because you've gone over the edge of your own behavior. And it would demean the game if I continue to let you interrupt this game that way. Without saying it to him, you can do all of these things non-verbally with your own movements. Sometimes it's, oh, other times it's, and then you go back over and go, I think I missed that. I used to walk over and the coach would go, Gee, and I go, I missed it. He goes, no, you didn't. I said, yes, I did. Don't tell me when I miss them or not. And then pat me on the rear end. And I missed it. But it's in that world, right? And now you're also successful, you know, and that's fantastic. So remember this. You've been 15 years working postseason. This year and the next month, you're going to walk out on the court with the young lady or guy who they don't know at all. And when you go over and shake those hands and turn around, you're going to start back across, and that coach is going to go, Carl, come here. Who is this? Right? Good official, coach. Going to be really good. You know, bang, 3 calls the new official has, missed 2 of them. Coach is not happy. Now you tell that official, go across, I got it. You put your hands up. Work with her, coach. She's working hard. I hear you. I hear you. She's working hard. Be fair. Be fair. Leave. Protect it. Protect the fraternity there. Save it. And they're not long conversations. Basketball is beautiful. It's a hit and miss game. All you got to do is survive the next 7 seconds, because guess what? 10 seconds from now, they're yelling about something else. New shiny object. That's a hit and miss. Boop, boop, gone. Boop, boop, Teddy Valentine, master. Boom, boom, gone. Next subject. You know what I mean? Gene, that play under the hoop, coach, if I was watching under the hoop, I would have missed this half elbow. You didn't even see her at the free throw line. What happened down there? Gene, the play. Where, coach? Where? Down there. Where? Coach, what? Never. Down there. Coach, if I'm looking down there from 28 feet, I would admit your guy almost got decapitated. I was right on this one. Go on, play's going. Ball's in play. You know what I mean? And so are you going. I'll swing back to you. We'll have a bunch of free throws tonight, then I'll walk over. And you look and go, whew, you're killing me tonight, man. You know? That's how you do it. That's how you
appreciate
do this.
that.
You know what I'm saying? That's how you do it. You shot, boom, move. I used to get downgraded twice a game and say, Steratore, why did you rotate? The ball wasn't across the 10-second line. I would say, because I was on the bench side for 9 possessions in a row, and I'm getting across the court. Downgrade me for rotating too quick, but I needed a break for 40 seconds.
That's really helpful. I appreciate it. And
Doesn't get me all pumped up. I'm ready to go work tonight. I want to go work.
Thank you, Gene.
Thank you.
Gene, thank you for giving us permission to call the coaches adolescent. I've been waiting to do that.
That's only amongst us, Paulie.
But sometimes you have to talk to them like a child because their behavior comes to the child level.
And I think as long as you observe that, then the behavior becomes less dramatic because you're really looking and going, this multimillionaire's acting like he's 15 right now. I almost feel bad for him. And I'm not taking this personal, but look at that. And your eyes can convey that message a little bit without your mouth moving.
I wish they would have mic'd you up back in your day.
They did 3 times, but I don't know if that's coming out for a while.
I need those clips, Gene. We got a few more questions through the chat. Cameron from Virginia. Cam, welcome, and say hello to Gene.
Hey, Gene, thanks again for being here. Like Paul said, I'm from Virginia. This will be year 2 for me. Doing high school, I did some intramurals for 5 years in undergrad and grad school. So really enjoying it so far. You touched a little bit on coach interactions. I think you mentioned Tom Izzo, Bruce Arians. Can you talk about any coaches, whether football or basketball, any coaches that were particularly difficult to deal with, or you had fun interactions with, or just kind of any stories from coach or talking with coaches in your games?
I never really felt like any were overly difficult, to be honest with you, Cameron. There were times when I knew they were unfair, right? I had more difficulty with the ones that didn't talk at all. Those ones I didn't know where they were coming from. I wanted more Izzos and less maybe of like the Tony Dungy type of an individual. Not that he wasn't intense by any stretch of the imagination, but it was harder to read that. I wanted more Bill Cowher, Bruce Arians stuff, you know what I mean? Because I felt real comfortable in that space. And football provided me that comfort because you could say an awful lot more on a football sideline. Hey, I was the worst roughing and running into the kicker referee in the history of football because when punters would spin around after just getting touched, I was like, wanted to give the flop signal. Like, I'm not calling it, and there was a night in Arizona where the punter got bumped and spun and like it was a soccer game, flailed out like I was supposed to come out with the red card. And I called nothing. And Arians went completely nuts. What are you doing? I said, that's a flop. It's a flop. It's a flagrant one. It's a class A technical. What do you mean? What am I doing? And he would look and go, you gonna be kidding me? He goes, running into the kicker is a penalty. And I looked and I went, oh shoot, I didn't think about that, Coach. You're probably right. Those last 3 plays you called over were really bad, or we wouldn't have been punting, and I would leave. But I also had a relationship. So I shouldn't say that. That would be something I want you to use in your second year, Cam. But every single coach, I can tell you, they just were all the engaging things to me were experiences to learn from, but always to take in the most positive sense, even when they acted in a very adolescent way. I never really, and I mean this, after 3,000 basketball games, I never gave someone a tech. They really didn't. They gave themselves the tech, and I never called a technical foul with any conviction more than it was just a personal foul. Because I had so much of a different callous shell around my body that it wasn't ever going to get personal for me. Even if I knew they personally disliked me, that wasn't my fault. That was their fault. You know what I mean? So I just never let that get inside of me. And for that reason, I think what it allowed me to do was to accept this stuff and be able to navigate it and kind of almost, now I never miss plays on purpose so I could have the engagements, don't get me wrong, but I never felt like those were difficult things for me. I enjoyed them. You know, I just did. I thoroughly enjoyed them. I used them as learning experience, and I was wrong many, many nights. You know what I mean? Wrong. Never go into a coach's huddle on a timeout. Okay. When you go into a team's huddle on a timeout, even if he said something really bad and spun and got in his huddle quick because he knew he was about to get teed, don't follow him in that huddle. Understand what that huddle is to him. That's his pride of wolves, and he is the king dog in that huddle. You can't walk in there and invade that space. But you, by rule, at the first buzzer, are supposed to get that team out of that huddle, right? Because they need to be on the court ready for that second horn. And if you're who you are, and you were on the opposite side of the court and you had a half interaction and it didn't go well, and he half waved you before he went in his huddle, and you were like right on the cusp of, I should have whacked him for that. But I didn't. But I can't let that go right now. Then switch and get on that side of the court. And when that first horn is, you should be standing right outside his huddle and get right in there. First horn, let's go. And hope he gets up, because now he's cooled for 50 seconds and I'm going to win these last 12 before we put the ball in play. And everybody's really not watching me right now with him. And now I'm going to get these 12 seconds. And by those 40 seconds, buy yourself some time to navigate that. That's where you'll hone your skill of the management. And that can't be taught from me to you completely. That's your engagement, and how do I get in that space and feel like I did something productive there. I didn't get back at him or her. I did something productive for the game, you know? And it's in those windows, then you'll end up with a million stories of your own. That'll be way more exciting than mine.
Gene, you got a lot of mental toughness and thick skin and, you know, emotional stability to be able to navigate, you know, the reactions from the coach. And just a very important point that you just mentioned, we don't want to go into the coach's huddle during the timeout. That is not the time, as you mentioned. But right when it's over and they've decompressed and they've, you know, spoken to their team for 60 straight seconds, they have no ammunition left. That's their best time to be a good listener for the message that you want to deliver. Right. So it's absolutely the best time to when you have to manage the coach there in those 10, 15 seconds. Cody from Phoenix. Cody, welcome to the group. Thanks for joining our call. You can unmic.
Yeah, thank you for that, Paul. And Gene, thank you for being here tonight. Like Paul said, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. It's a frosty 60 degrees, like I told you.
I want to hear that, Cody.
Yeah. I told him all this afternoon. It was 70 degrees and chilly. But Gene, I just have one question. I've heard a lot of guys, you know, even myself, we have very habitual things we do before the game and even after the game to get our minds right. And it sounds like over the years, you know, that built a level of mental toughness for you. What are some of the things that you kind of did to get your mind right for, you know, we try to treat every game as a game, but, you know, those big games where, you know, you're going to have all the cameras, all the lights and everything on you. How did you get your mind ready for those?
I studied every game at that level. I would tell you, I watched every team 2 days before those games. I found 30 minutes to watch their games. I talked to my assigner, my Big Ten basketball assigner, Rick Boyages, was an amazing gem for me for basketball because he was a coach for 20 plus years. So that conversation the day before a game was him telling me, this is the way this team runs their offenses. This is the way the team they're playing defense is that. These are the three matchups where the mesh point would occur to where So-and-so has to run. When I had Georgetown, here's a good example. Georgetown runs a Princeton offense. You need to know your teams, okay, from 10,000 feet. You all need to know your teams. You all have the luxury of a video, even at the high school levels, definitely at the college levels. Always watch your teams. Coaches in college, remember this, at the college level, coaches recruit players to fit their style of coaching. They have the freedom to search the country and choose players that fit their coaching schemes. In professional football, teams change based on who they draft. And NFL teams draft the best player when it comes time to draft. So you go from Joe Flacco in Baltimore with the Ravens to Lamar Jackson. So NFL teams, professional teams change based on personnel they draft. Coaches in college draft or recruit players that fit their scheme. So John Thompson runs the Princeton offense, right? The Princeton offense is a man-to-man screen, pick and roll, motion offense. If Georgetown's playing somebody, what can't happen? And I'm empathetic to Georgetown's preparation. Not that I'm going to cheat. I need to know, what did John Thompson and Georgetown do for the last 48 hours? And I don't have to watch his practices. I have to just think like somebody that is a very important part of this contest. What did he do the last 2 days to prep for a game I'm working tonight? He ran that offense against Jim Boeheim and Syracuse's 2-3 match defense. What can happen if John Thompson's going to be able to run his offense tonight? They can't hold his cutters, right? If it's just a shirt grab that takes a half a step away from his cutter tonight, he can't run that offense. So when they hold a cutter tonight, even if it's a kind of a technical hold, but it's there, I'm getting that whistle, because he can't play without that play being run correctly. And I'm not cheating because it's a foul. But at the same time, if his big guy comes up to the free throw line extended and his guard starts to drive too quick before the big guy gets set to set that screen, and that big guy's not fully set when that collision occurs, I'm taking that possession from you. Because in order for you to win, you got to run this screen and this roll offense. And I'm going to not let them hold your cutters or tug his shirt. But you're not going to bend it at all either with your screens tonight. And if he looks and goes, "Are you kidding me?" And then say, "Yep," and you get down the other end and say, "They're going to set screens tonight and you're not going to hold cutters." When you say that to coaches because you know what they run, what do you think that would tell you if you were a coach and an official came to you and said that? How much mad respect would you have for that ref, thinking he or she studied what we do? They know what we do. That's how much they already put into this. It changes the level of who you are. Always study your teams. And then if you have the opportunity, study the 2 or 3 matchups that are going to be the difference in this game individually, right? So now we're going to get those things right. Don't put fouls on important, don't put technical fouls, little too technical fouls on people that cause coaches to have to sub. And when you put the second foul on a player in a basketball game in the first half, that coach immediately has to make a decision when that second foul occurs. Am I going to roll the dice and play this player for the rest of the first half and risk the third foul on the front end of this thing? Or do I have to change everything I did because of this? That's why that first foul at 19:53 in the first half, that's a ticky-tack, can be the thing that causes the entire game to change. And we as officials need to understand the magnitude of that as soon as the basketball goes up. Okay? That's what that means, right? You have to know that. Your awareness level has to be at that level when the ball leaves the referee's hand. You must do that. You don't, and here's why you do that. Because you decided to take the game. That's the most important thing of everybody on that court tonight's day. And you chose to take the game. And if you're not that aware, you shouldn't have taken this game. And that'll take you to a place to say, humbly, we're 3 to 5% of every game. More than likely, it might be the biggest 3% of the entire night if I don't do what I need to do. Understand that. That's the pressure of the game. It's not the cameras. It's not 180 million. It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with you and your understanding and awareness of the minute I start making decisions tonight, that trickle down at some point is a huge play. People ask all the time, why aren't we using instant replay in football? We miss these big fouls. I got news for you. When it's 3rd and 10 from the offense is on their own 2 and got 98 yards to go, and it's 3rd and 10 with 13 minutes left in the first quarter of an NFL game, and somebody calls defensive holding on a bad call, and that team isn't punting from their own end zone, but get a first down, and now it's 1st and 8 from their own 8, and they just get 20 more yards and take 4 minutes of game, but when they punt from their 25, the other team starts on the other 15, you have negatively affected this game for the next 2.5 hours. You blew it. You blew it. That's the level of expectation that you have to go into games with, humbly knowing you're going to have those nights. And how are you going to navigate it when you know you blew that? But that's how important. That's why I chuckle in this new position. Like, can't we just use this for the big plays? I'm like, big plays? You people don't know there's 165 plays in the NFL game. 135 of them are really big plays. The other 15 are when they take a knee or the last 2 seconds of the first half when they throw the ball out of bounds. Every other play is the biggest play because it changes the dynamic. Same in hoops. So that's how you kind of do it, right? Without scaring yourself so much to death, like, oh my God, I messed this whole game up because I called an off the ball foul on a low down screen or something. Again, like I said, set the standard for you to be at a level that is achievable, but not easy to get to. Understand you'll never work the perfect game. Embrace your imperfection, but never use it to the detriment of your ability to want to get everything right for the right reason. And know that none of those things probably in this whole world of Matrix will ever come to a full encompassing game. But within each game, when the crew thinks that way, there will be these 8 minutes of that game where you're like, dude, we were so on point, like we didn't miss a thing. And that's that thing. That's that thing we do. That's why I'm talking to you. That's it. And it's simple as that. In my basement, you know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that.
Got it. I'm rambling. I'm getting texts. My sweetheart's upstairs like, I've been here for an hour. I said, I'll be right up.
Appreciate your passion, Gene. You got time to answer one more?
Sure.
We have a special guest here. Pedro, my daughter's middle name is Rhea, so this is awesome. I want to welcome Pedro. And Rhea, why don't you unmute? What's your question for Gene?
Hey, Gene. Love seeing you on TV. Everyone's thanked you enough, so I won't add to that pile.
No, yell at me, Pedro. Make me feel at home. Your daughter is beautiful.
Thank you. Appreciate it. She's a little late. Thanks for bringing up the family portion of you were talking about earlier. That really hit home for me as a father of 3 kids and a wife. And, this is the season where we're not home very often. And I made sure last night to take them to the Celtics game. Hawks game now that I'm in Georgia. I recently moved here from Boston. The kids were up late last night and my wife had to take them all to school this morning, and she was cursing my name like that was a great idea to take the kids to a late night game, and now they're all cranky this morning, so I figured you'd get a good chuckle out of that. To my question though, can you talk about maybe the difficulty or maybe some good stories on your current role, right? I mean, you're basically critiquing your fellow peers, maybe some good friends of yours on the field. They're coming to you and they're like, "Hey, Gene, what do you got on that play?"
Yeah.
Can you speak to that? And like, obviously, I'm sure some of your peers don't hold you to anything because obviously you got a different angle and you've seen it 3 or 4 times before you have a say. but can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, and I appreciate the question. When I was on the field and there were a few analysts, there weren't as many now. I empathize with the guys and gals on the fields and courts now by having these so-called analysts sitting there and passing some judgments to them. But officials, really, really good officials are okay when they miss a play if you acknowledge the fact that they missed a play, because they already know they missed it. And the piling on from the 180 million Twitters don't bother you when you know you missed it. You know what I mean? Like, it's noise. And at that level, it has to become noise, because the only things that ever bothered me about the noise, and I had some tough situations and decisions in my career with the Calvin Johnson catch, the Des Bryant catch, the index card game where my children were getting death threats, and maybe you got to have people, you're getting crazy texts and emails, right? Like, I know where your daughter works, things like that. It's a scary world because those people are innocent. So when I took this role, I have to be honest with you, Pedro, one of the reasons that I really took the role, and probably the main reason, other than being home now for Lisa and her 4 children and my 3 children that are traveling abroad, but my son handles my social media, one of my older children. I engage with him on the weekends, so I am sharing the weekends in New York with him. My other son is a really good small college basketball official that works for RefQuest Plus. He works in my studio as well now. So now I am winning on what I call the back end, Pedro, which I promised my children I would do for all the sacrifices they made on the front end, like your daughter's making now and your other children. So it was a really nice transfer for me in that regard, where I could not believe, it's still surreal to me that a little poor kid from Western Pennsylvania, 7 brothers and sisters, and hoping the tomatoes grew in the garden so we could have spaghetti sauce through the winter, now is getting picked up in a limousine with his 3 children and going to Manhattan every week in CBS studios. So it's a surreal moment, and I will never undervalue the humility of just having the opportunity. But in the raw sense, what I try to do, which isn't easy all the time, because I don't get the luxury to elaborate this long on plays and in that window of time, right? You get a play, you get 40 seconds. I'm scrubbing that play as fast as I can so that I don't misspeak on the play. If it's a judgment situation, the first thing I do in either sport is I morph into the covering official's angle. I morph immediately into whoever the official is on the football field that was primary on that play. I watch that play in real time, looking for any possible angles that could have caused him or her not to see something that we all blatantly see in slow motion, frame by frame, 10 seconds later, while the world sits and tweets how blind they are and how much they're ruining games. And then when I get my airtime, if I can speak to that portion on the front end, understanding that when they show the second replay, that it's in everyone's living room, that it's a blatant miss. It's the face mask that happened the other night in the Eagles game, if you watch that, right? Well, that official that didn't see that is Jeff Bergman. He's worked 34 years in the NFL. He's the most storied line of scrimmage official in the history of the NFL. He had 2 offensive linemen stand up, weirdly enough, and just turn right at the time that face mask happened in 3/4 of a second. And then the face is back and the ball's out. And that's how quick that thing happens. There is a human element that I think I have to continuously, much to the chagrin of the haters on anti-social media, that I'm protecting the fraternity. But I think when those places show up, you say the truth. I know if he or she had the luxury that I have right now to look at this 4 times, the chances of them changing their mind on that play are probably pretty high. It's a fast game and you only get 1 crack, but it's a miss. And I think you have to say that as well. You have to say, look, a miss is a miss. I don't seek the plays in this position. My fellow brethren know that. Every time I watch a game, all of you are in this business. whatever sport it is that you have become more expertised in, when you watch them now, you're not watching those games entertaining wise anymore. You can't. You ruined that. You're reffing them. You're watching off ball and stuff if you're a basketball ref, right? If you're a deep wing official and you're watching an NFL game, you're watching the action on the widest receiver because we're reffing. So I think this platform has to, at some point, have the credibility to say a miss is a miss, allow our color analysts to have a little bit of that kind of coach feel like, we got to get this right. But then there's another window of this, and I try to do it with my son on social media. I only put 4 or 5 tweets out a week. 2 or 3 have to be put out because it's a big play and a big miss, and it's what the networks, it's how this thing operates. But then there's 2 or 3 that don't get as many likes, that are, what a great job by the back judge on this play. You have no idea how hard this is to see that catch and see that foot hit in real time. That gets 3 likes. Show a miss roughing the passer, you're trending. So it's the world, but I'm not changing what I want, what I feel my role is. And that's the appreciation of this third team in the sporting events. It's challenging to do in the 10-second windows. I can do a little bit of it on social media. If I, just because the content's going out, whether they want it to or not. But really the fraternity has been really appreciative, I think, of it, because what we're trying to do is say, look at, this is hard. That's another one wherever, if Carl didn't disappear yet, and for all of you, look, when the crowd gets crazy in your close proximity gyms, okay? And you know where they're at. And when you get really good at this business, you'll know what row and what seat they are, and you'll never have to see them, but you'll know just by the voice, that guy is in the 3rd row, 4 rows in from the aisle. I know he is, and I have yet to make eye contact, and we're 15 minutes in the game. Have fun with it. Have a little levity with that. And be good enough to know that if you time it right, you'll be able to spin on one timeout when he's in mid-sentence and can't stop the sentence. And when he's in mid-sentence and you're on the court looking down and you hear him, and then when he's in mid-sentence, just turn and look. Don't have to say anything, just turn and look and watch him or her freeze. And what I used to do, and maybe this isn't good for public consumption, I would stare at the person next to him or her. And I would go, you're with him. And I'd look down. And usually 2 or 3 around would chuckle because you're engaging. You're not demeaning. I'm just looking like you. And I'd go, really? And I'd turn away. And that would be it. But it was the human element, right? Or there were times on the baseline when the guys would be really screaming. And I would just look and try to take a bead of sweat off with my finger and flick it on the court and then look up at them and just look them dead in the eye and go, oh, this is hard, okay? Because I knew how close they were to the court. And they can see those 10 athletes freaking running like they're running 15 feet in the air. And you know how hard this is. So every once in a while, I might just look at you like guy to guy and go, oh, this is hard. Okay, that's all I'm saying tonight. This isn't easy tonight. Be nice to me. This is hard. And they become human. They become human. And I think the same applies for this position. We could go out, I could watch every NFL game. I see 10 mistakes a game on grading. Is it my job to tell the country about 8 of them? No. It's my job to tell them the ones that jump out. It's my job to try to get in and give them the compliment when plays are really hard, and this is really hard, and a little bit of appreciation of what the men and women do that officiate is kind of the bigger goal now, which is why I took the job, Pedro. And that's, I got to mentor, and what Paul is doing and this whole mentoring thing that you all are doing. This is the diamond in the business. It doesn't matter what level you ever ref. I can promise you it's a dog and pony show, okay? that has bigger audiences and more electronics and all this exposure. And for what it's worth, if you're into it, some public recognition, I guess, which is not the best thing in the world to have, I can assure you. But at the end of the day, every single one of them is this beautiful universe, which is this game that everybody prepped for from the moment they woke up that day. Whether it's a high school athlete that went to the pep rally on Friday, or whether it's the NFL player that prepped for Monday Night Football, when you wake up game day morning, there's something different about that day. All of us sharing that, and this mentoring process to share this stuff with each other and to bring new people from completely different angles of life and different personalities together in some crazy passion that you really want to voluntarily put yourself in an extremely high intense environment where grown professional adults act adolescent in front of thousands of people, and none of it is scripted, and you will not be recognized for anything that you do for this entire contest unless you make a mistake. And you can't wait to do this. Think about what that makes us. Think about the integrity and the honor of what that makes our fraternity. That's why you help every partner in every game, even if you really don't want to go have a beer with him or her or pop with him or her after the day. That's irrelevant. This thing is so deeply philosophically tied into who we are as people that you will learn more about everything you do in your life if you get into this in that way and appreciate what that all means and what you are voluntarily doing. And then ask yourself, why am I doing it? For a check? Don't do it for the check. It'll never pay. And I made a lot of money doing it. It was never for the check. You know what I mean? Like, it was for the challenge. Like, can you crank this up 5 nights a week and then not take the weekends off, go do an NFL game? And then crank it up for 5 more days next week in this environment every night with this pressure, knowing you're going to make some mistakes along the way, but it's all good because I'm here for the right reasons. Like, and then to have these mentorships at this level, this is like priceless stuff, man. I'm telling you. And I promise you, if you stay engaged for the right reasons, don't let the politics, don't let the postseason, let the jewelry for the jewelers. You don't work games for rings, patches, and watches. You want to work the hardest contest that's played that night. Don't tell me where the biggest game is. Tell me where the hardest game is. Tell me where the most decisions are going to be made tonight. That's the one I want. I wanted the AFC and NFC championship, not the Super Bowl. Because they're going to kill each other to get to the Super Bowl. When we get to the Super Bowl, they get a week worth of endorsements. And it's the big show. You play the AFC and NFC championship in somebody's house. It's a home team. And I'm going to hurt you tonight to get to this Super Bowl. Now, that's the game I want. That's the hardest game. I want the hardest game, right? I want the biggest challenge. Not because I want to be seen on TV. I don't care if they play it outside my backyard. I swear to God, I don't. You know what I mean? I want those decisions tonight. I want that pressure tonight. That's why I'm doing that. Now, my psychologist tells me that I can let that go now that I'm no longer on the field in court. But I will say this to you humbly. There's some pressure in what I do. I love the little window of time I get to navigate something, understanding that when I do speak now, I can't miss. Tony Romo can miss on a ref call. That's not what they pay Tony Romo to do. The rules analysts can't miss. You get about 98% here. You know what I'm saying? And you got to be ready to go quick and get done, because before they break that huddle, Jim Nance has to talk about Tom Brady. Okay, I'm giving you 12 seconds now. Let's go. And you got 30 to figure out whether that ball went off the ground or not. Are they going to rule it that way? Is the NFL seeing it the same way you are? You're about to tell everybody you think this is a catch, and this referee is about to go out there and say it isn't, you know, or something like that. So it has nothing to do with all of that. But from 5,000 feet, it's the same damn thing I did when I was on the field of court. throw me this pressure in this little condensed window where I'm going to be totally scrutinized for only the mistakes. I can't wait. And whenever I say something positive about the fraternity, I'm going to be lashed at for being a fraternity guy who protects everybody. Because these guys just slept at a Holiday Inn Express last night. They're terrible, you know? And that's the beauty of it. Like, that's it. That's the reason. You know what I mean? And now to be able to do this, but be able to have the time not to mentor on the ground with the foot soldiers any longer, but have a chance to reach out and talk to all of you from Arizona to Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, to Minnesota, to Wisconsin. You got to be shitting me, man. I'm like, I've hit the lotto so many times, it's ridiculous. And the goal now is we need people to ref, we need them to ref, because the payback to this, it's gigantic for people, for us as people. And I'm like, I'll never quit, giving back to this, because it is what that is. It is what that is. And the fraternity is bigger than all of us too, right? And that's what's fun about it. It's just a chess piece on a board. And I'm in the first two spots too. I'm not even in the back row. I'm the little one with the little knob on his head. If you only can move 2 spaces the first move, that's who I am,
Absolutely phenomenal work, Gene. We want to thank you for your time. Thank you for drawing so many parallels from officiating to life. Thank you for what you're doing for officials to help the shortage. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. And I look forward to seeing you this Thursday. And I just want to say, on behalf of the whole community, we consider you Crown family for life, and we really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, because what you're doing right here, Paul, is special, beyond special. And all of you that are involved are equally as special, but that's an extra star in my book, Paul, because I know why you're doing it. It's like, it's not a self-serving thing here. It's deeper than that. It shows just in the way you are, and we've only seen each other for an hour and 51 minutes and talked for another 30. But it's real and authentic. God bless all of you. Please keep doing it. I love all of you. Don't ever stop doing this, and never take it personal. We're the ones that control the game. Just don't let anybody know. I'm out.
Thank you for listening to the Crown Refs Podcast. Serve the game.